Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So what we've got today is what I think is the best Haaland and Salah wildcard draft team that you'll see anywhere in FPL. Hopefully it helps you out with your own team selection. Even if you're not wildcarding, the transfer thoughts might give you some good ideas. And we do use charts and data to try and back up my thoughts around the team. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. I've got a small channel trying to grow, and every subscription it honestly really does make such a difference. So let's take a look at the team. And as always, we're going to start in goal and we're going with Keller from Brentford. Now, because we've got Salah and Haaland in the team, we've got to try and save some money somewhere. And one of those places is in goal. So Kelleher is the keeper. And to be honest, it's nothing special. It's not a groundbreaking keeper selection. It is a solid goalkeeper. Brentford, they're probably going to keep just as much clean sheets as a lot of mid-table teams. And since we're looking at 4.5 million price goalkeepers, when we look at the chart here, this is all we've got. So these keepers are priced at 4.5 million. And we can see that Kelleher here, he sort of fits in the middle of goals conceded and saves per game. Brentford, they're going to concede goals. Kelleher, he's probably going to average just under 3 saves per game. Some weeks he'll get a clean sheet and a save point. Some weeks he won't. But in goal, it is the smallest points difference between the top and the bottom price players. You know, the difference in points from the top scoring player, it's not that great. So I think if you were going to save money elsewhere, go for a goalkeeper that's a little cheaper, and therefore it gives you that money to invest in Salah and Haaland. So into defence we go, and I'm going to highlight Calafiori here because you're looking at his fixtures, a bit like what we talked about before, and you think, why are you getting him in this game week? Why are you getting in an Arsenal defender? Well, if you're wildcarding, you need to set yourself up for the long term. Up to game week 18, that's when you're going to get your next wildcard. And therefore, when Arsenal's fixtures turn, you're already going to have in the players that everyone else is looking at getting. Now, Arsenal have a really good defence anyway. They've only conceded one goal in the 4 games so far, and that was that Szoboszlai free kick. And I think it's something that we really are needing to focus on how good their defence is. Now, I did have some comments in a previous video also wondering about which is the best four at the back team to have. And I think this is it. This is pretty solid defensively. We've got not only some premiums, but pretty much all premiums apart from Senesi. Van Dijk, Lacroix, and Tarkowski, their defensive contributions are second to none. With Calafiori, people are worried about him starting, but he's started pretty much every game so far this season, and Arsenal don't really have reliable fullbacks at the moment other than him. Timbers gets injured, Ben White gets injured. So I think Calafiori is someone who is just going to be in their lineup from the foreseeable future. So when we take a look at defensive data, we're looking at expected goal involvements combined with defensive contributions per start. Now, these are just the defenders who have started at least 3 out of the first 4 games of the season because that's what you want. You want your players to start. Also, if a player has come off the bench a couple of times, like Mosquera for Arsenal, he's only started 1 game, came off the bench very early on in the other, and his defensive contributions were off the chart when you're looking at per start. So we want to see these players who are playing more regularly, and where the line is drawn here is pretty much at 10 defensive contributions per start. So that the baseline is pretty high for anyone above this line. And it just so happens that 4 out of the 5 defenders in this team are all averaging over 10 defensive contributions per start. So that means really they're not looking at getting less than 3 points per game, which is fantastic. And if they keep a clean sheet, it's a minimum of 8. So you're getting in these players that are not only doing really well in terms of defensive contributions, but also if they're from good, solid teams as well, who are likely to keep clean sheets. Now, when we take a look at Calafiori, he is down here in the bottom right. And let's face it, he's not going to get you a lot of defensive contributions. But what he is going to get you is some good goal involvements, or at least expected goal involvements. Now, is he going to get you a return every game? Probably not, but he is going to get you a lot of points because he's playing for that Arsenal defence. So what that doesn't show on this chart is clean sheets and actual points that your defender is getting. That gives us an avenue into looking at where the points come from. But Calafiori, you have to take and see that because he's playing for Arsenal, he will be getting you those points as well. Even if the defensive contributions are lacking, he's only point 0.2 more than David Raya. So it's not like he's the most expensive way into the Arsenal defence. I think he's definitely worth a shout on a wild card. And I think this also gives you a four-man defence for your squad, and you'd just be happy to start any of them in any game week. So into midfield we go, and I'm highlighting Caicedo here. I don't think he's going to score a goal every other game. He's got 2 goals so far. But what he does offer you, again, is that very high floor of points. He's going to get you at least 4 points per game because his defensive contribution, he's averaging nearly 15 per game. And I think that's something that does need to be taken into account. When you've got Salah and Haaland in your 11, you have to A, save that money from elsewhere, and B, sort of try and sort your points out in a bit of a different way, be a bit inventive with your points. And I think that's something that Caicedo does because he's giving you those defensive contributions, which not a lot of midfielders do. Having a high baseline is probably better than a low ceiling. A lot of midfielders that you get that are more expensive, you get them in for their attacking returns, but they're not getting a lot of attacking returns. Even you take someone like a Kudus, who got 2 assists in his first game for Spurs. He's not got any attacking returns since. So when you average that out over a longer period of time, he's not really done too much. Look at a Caicedo. If you take out his 2 goals, he's got defensive contributions quite a lot, and therefore he gives you that steady stream of points to help supplement those big attacking returns you're hoping for from your premium players. You might also notice Tavernier and Anderson in here, both at 5.5 million as well. I think that's just a really good shout. We know Anderson with defensive contributions and potential set pieces is a good option. And Tavernier we're going to talk about in a second when we look at the charts. Now, here again, we can see defensive contributions per start combined with points per game. So basically, how much of the player's points is coming from defensive contributions. For a midfielder, you need to be getting 12, and the line would be about here per game. And for this midfield, we can see Anderson and Caicedo, they're both consistently averaging above that line. So that means that they're going to be getting you those extra 2 points no matter what, even before they have an attacking return. We can see Tavernier and Semenyo are a little bit below this line, Semenyo especially, but he's not in there for his defensive contributions. He's in there for his attacking returns. Tavernier is kind of a middle of the pack sort of midfielder. He doesn't necessarily stand out. But when we take a look at a slightly different chart, we can see that he is ranked pretty much about the same. Now, this is expected goal involvements and points per game. So we've seen the defensive contributions on the defensive side. Now we're looking at the expected goals on the attacking side, and Tavernier ranks pretty much equally on both charts, which means to say he's quite a well-rounded player, and he's someone that can offer you potential points on both sides of the ball. So Menio at the top right is head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of expected goal involvements and turning that into points. So he is just a must-have. Even though he's at 7.5 million right now, I think it's something that if he'd started the season at 7.5 million, you'd still get him in. Don't think, oh, I've missed out on his original price. If he's going to score you points, he's worth the money. So up front, we're going for Haaland and João Pedro. We've had to go for Mark Gui on the bench, and it is another Chelsea player, a third Chelsea player. But the fact that Chelsea are a little short on strikers, and he is essentially the backup striker. I don't hate it too much. He's also the most likely 4.4 million striker to play, and because we've gone for 2 massive premiums in Salah and Haaland, you do need to put costs somewhere else. And it's very rarely that you're going to need your third bench player. And I actually think the bench looks fairly strong with Tarkowski and Anderson on there, and you can rotate them in and out your starting lineup as you please. So when we take a look at Haaland and João Pedro on the charts, we've got expected selected by percentage, so the number of managers in FPL who have selected them, as well as their goal contributions so far this season. And we can see that they are just head and shoulders above everybody else. Not only are they getting the most goal contributions, but they're selected by the highest percentage of managers as well, which means if you don't own them and they do well, your rank is much more likely to decrease quite steeply. Whereas if you do own them, you're kind of protecting your rank and you're also getting points at the same time. It does make sense to get them. And the fact that you could get both of them in this team, I think, is a really good plus for this squad. So let's take a look at the pluses and minuses. And when I typed this team into Fantasy Football Hub, it came out at 96%, which, for a very top heavy team when you've got Salah and Haaland in it, sometimes the rest of the squad is a bit unbalanced. So I think 96% speaks volumes. The downside is that it is just over 100 million. But if you've owned, say, Semenyo or João Pedro from the start, maybe a Van Dijk you've owned, and they've gone up in price, then you're not having to buy them in from scratch, and you can therefore for the rest of the team within your 100 million budget. So hopefully that's the case for most people. I try and stick it below 100 million if I can, but I just thought because a lot of these players have gone up in price, if you already own them, it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. So the strengths for me is it solves the Salah Haaland dilemma because you've got both of them. A lot of people right now are thinking of swapping Salah to Haaland, and there's always a risk with that in terms of does Salah go and score a hat trick or something as soon as you take him out? Here you're covering both bases. It might provide a little bit of a captaincy headache each game week, but I think it's a nice problem to have. And as we said previously, great baseline scores. Someone like an Anderson, a Tarkowski, a Caicedo, basically all of your defense are going to be getting you 2 defensive contribution points per game. And therefore, your minimum score that you could get each week increases. You compare that to maybe a more attacking defender who might get you a goal every or an assist every 10 games, but they're not getting defensive contributions. Most weeks you're just getting 2 points. So it gives you a lot more solidity in your overall team score. The weaknesses, however, is it's a lot of money tied up into players. And what that can do is be a bit of a plus because if you did want to sell Salah or Haaland, you could literally get any midfielder or striker in the game. But it does limit your future flexibility in the fact that a lot of times you don't want to sell them. So are you prepared to keep them for the foreseeable future, potentially the rest of the season? Because if that's the case, and you don't want to sell them, you've got to try and make the rest of your team work. And let's say Tavernier or Anderson or Tarkowski, you don't necessarily want them long term. Are you going to be able to upgrade your midfielders, especially to someone that you want that's going to contribute consistently? Or are you just going to try and ride that wave of just going for those big hitters? So that's the video. Hopefully, it helps you out with your wildcard team. I think it's an interesting team overall, and I think it is well balanced. Also offers like some premium defenders, which I know some of you were asking for. I think as a squad, it looks great and you're getting points in all the right places. But let me know what you think about the team. And also let me know if you're wildcarding. And if so, are you going for Salah or Haaland, or are you trying to squeeze in both? So yeah, please do subscribe. Hopefully you're having a good week. Looking forward to game week 5, and I will see you in the next one.